Hi everyone. I'm so sorry again for the late video. I really thought that we just only had a quiz this week. And when I logged in today, I saw we had a discussion and I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, but I already had done all of my interview for the counselors that I interviewed this week. But let me go ahead and just answer this. So it just says to present our questions that we're going to ask the counselors and then explain your rationale behind them, how you design them, and what information you want to get from each counselor. And I just kind of stuck to the questions that we were given as a guide. I really feel like I mostly wanted to focus on what the counselors at my school and the different ones I chose, what they focused their time on, and more specifically, what their roles are, how they divide their time, and I'm seeing here, and how they work with other professionals in the setting. And so I wanted to go over the results, but that's not till next week and the next one. But I just mostly stuck to the questions that we were assigned to, and they all kind of answered I shouldn't say the responses yet because that's not the thing yet. Okay, but I mostly wanted to focus on their roles as the school counselor, but because I hear a lot of confusion sometimes. What one thinks the school, I'm so sorry if I looked really tired. What one thinks a school counselor does. And, going into it too, I thought it was a lot of, we got to work with students. But no, it's not. And that's the reality. And so the school counselor at my school and the other school counselors have just stated also the truth. Well, at least within my school district, I work in Edinburgh, CISD, and in this district, they focus a lot on the school counselors, more on the academic, and kind of more as, what's that word? Coordinators, testing coordinators. That's what the counselors do a lot of, and they do spend less time working with actual students and working with actual students and doing interventions with students and things like that. They do more like SPED referrals, speech referrals, RTIs, 504s. They do all those things. I'm going into that already, the answers, because I did the assignment before I read the thing. But that's just one thing that I've already noticed also that my school counselor has already told me to. But that's what I really want to focus on here when I explain more into detail, that this is just the reality. And like going into counseling, me, for example, I wanted to work more like one-on-one with students or with groups of students to be able to help them in their social emotional. But in reality, the fact is that we probably won't get to do that as much. And I know in the textbook it says, and in the Texas model, it says to counselors should divide their time 80% and 20%. So 80 should be, I believe it was 80% has to be more counseling related activities, and then the rest non-counseling. So that's what I want to focus on in the interview as I go over their responses next week and the following week. And I want to also go over how they divide their time into, because there's so much that goes on in a school counselors. If us as teachers, we think that, if we think that it's a behavioral student is a lot for us, or maybe the differentiation is a lot and we're trying to meet the needs of all of our class students. Imagine a counselor and her or him having to do that for campus wide. And for example, a lot of schools, like just like classrooms are overpopulated, a lot of schools are overpopulated. For example, it should be, I remember reading a few chapters ago that it was, I believe, 350 students per one counselor. And well, our school right now, it's been growing a lot. So we have almost 700 students and we only have one school counselor. So I can imagine how difficult it is for her. For her. Um, and then I interviewed two elementary school counselors, and the third one I chose middle school because later on I am wanting to go into middle school. So I chose the two elementary because one, well, it was the school counselor that I work with, and the other one was actually our SLE teacher that was our SLE teacher for years, and she ended up moving into counseling. And so I wanted to hear her input as well from the different perspective of knowing her as the SLE teacher and then now school counselor. And then the third one that I wanted to choose was our neighborhood middle school. We work across a middle school, and so I chose that middle school because it was our school neighbor. And two, I wanted to know the difference between elementary school counselor responsibilities, their roles, how they divide their time, how they develop their program, um, and how they collaborate with the professionals in their school, and what are the challenging parts and most rewarding parts of their job. So I wanted to know all that, and I just know that there's going to be a big difference between the elementary and middle school, and I think it will be helpful for me because that's what I do want to go into later on um, in the future, transition into middle school. But so I'll just go ahead and stop here, but that's what my focus will be on. Um, and so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.